Hey everybody, it's IronTrap podcast.
What's up, guys?
Doing another weekly podcast. This is an audio only one. I'm going to make this introduction short. By now, hopefully you've learned that we do every other one is a video and audio. This one is a audio only podcast. So if you're listening to this, just sit back and listen.
Enjoy your morning coffee.
Yeah, or your drive or work in the shop or whatever.
Yep.
So some of these audio ones we've been doing are more based around either shop talk stuff, inspiration, how we get things done, or sometimes business even. So that's what this is geared toward more so than like storytelling. But as far as we always try and do some sort of latest in things going on around here and whatever. Probably the biggest piece of news we have to mention is this week, unfortunately, Gene Winfield passed away.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of people asking us to do a podcast about Gene or our experiences with Gene, but I think I'm going to wait a little bit. I think it's a little too soon. So sometime in the near future, we might do one just BSing about some funny. I have a lot of funny stories in my short time spending with him. I have some stories, and we did a trip staying with him and whatever. So we'll do that, but it's
Still a little fresh.
Yeah, it's still a little fresh. So that's the bad news. Trying to think. Pickup truck's still for sale. We've had a lot of interest. I'm getting very close to trading it at this point. I have a couple of friends that have offered labor for it, and due to space constraints, that may end up happening. It's crazy to me because I was literally looking on Facebook like yesterday, and there was like a Model A pickup truck that was way worse shape with like no good parts with it, and it was like $5,800. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of surprising sometimes, but it is what it is. So if you're
selling project cars and cheaper vehicles has always been a struggle for us.
I don't know why.
Really nice cars,
so easy.
And high money cars, it's way less painful for whatever reason.
So that's going on. Mercury, tons of Mercury videos. We have the interiors getting started on the Mercury. So if you watch our Week in the Life video coming up, we'll have a little snippet of what's going on with that. So got a lot of stuff I'm juggling, but
my car's going back downstairs today. Actually, it's Friday. We're gonna pull that back downstairs, put on a lift, hopefully knock out the last bit of work so I can start driving it this spring.
Yep. Yeah,
Get some road miles on it.
We've actually had a good. This winter is probably, I would say, is the most smooth or organized with how we've been getting everything going. Where I've been mainly focusing on the Mercury and the fabrication side of that, and then Steve's just been putting cars on the lift and getting the checklist done on stuff. So he's done a great job this whole winter. Fall and winter of like, all right, even into the fall was like, all right, we got to get every car in and winterize it. And he spent like a week just going through every car and
a lot of coolant.
Yeah. And then like the green Roadster, he had 32 Roadster. He had that on the lift for like 2 weeks doing the brakes and getting everything just right. And today he was pulling 2 of the gauges out to have them sent away to get redone. So we've been doing a good job. I think next winter we're going to try and do the same thing where I'm going to focus on one car and get some major stuff done, progress or on the road or whatever it is. And then Steve can, he's just picking up all the stuff. And when he needs me to weld something or help make a small part, I can step away. But it seems to be working better. So that's the major stuff going on. I don't know if there's anything with the parts side of things.
Really? Trying to think. No, not really. We're just selling parts. Nothing really new coming in. Just
we're going to be.
Yeah, there's a lot of this spring. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming in, an insane amount of stuff. So stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll be having a lot. But Mike, if you're not checking the website or our eBay.
Oh, I made some changes to the website.
Okay.
So now when you go to the parts page, it is listed in chronological order of when it was listed. So all the new products show up first on the page.
Perfect.
We had some things I didn't notice that were happening. It was set up to show like best selling, which doesn't make sense.
Sold out. Yeah. So it's super frustrating if you were like, oh, what's this first item? Oh, sold out. What's this second item? Sold out. Yeah. Sold out. So
some just stuff that I didn't notice. It's been like that since the website was put up. So I made some changes, and it's now as listed chronologically. And I had to add some things, so now everything shows up on our website. There were some items from eBay that wouldn't show up unless you search them. So now it's all corrected. It'll all be visible.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
it's just dumb technology stuff that was a slight oversight. We're not website designers.
No. But Shopify makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, fairly easy, yeah.
So again, if you're looking for a part, the website is one of those things for us that like we kind of put it off for a while because it was like, man, I don't know if it's gonna, eBay works so well. I don't know if it's gonna be helpful. We've been finding that more and more people are using the website to order.
Yeah.
Trying to get people to remember, like, instead of going to eBay, if you want to see what we have, go right to our website, type in keywords so you can search. Sometimes type in, if something doesn't come up, try a different keyword just to make sure. Sometimes the search function is weird.
Which it also does that on eBay, too. To
Right.
be fair, eBay's search function is just as bad.
So, but just try, the website, our website is getting to be, more and more products. How many? 2,000 items?
Yeah, it's over 2,000 now.
So we're always listing items on there. And if you're thinking about you need something, save yourself an email potentially. We get a lot of emails where people email us and ask for a part, and we just send them the link to the website. So you can go right to our site, search for it, and if you see it, you can literally just buy it. As long as it's not like a freight shipment, or if you're overseas, we have to give you a quote, specialized quote. So we are getting better at this every day and week.
Slowly but surely.
So today's topic.
I also want to mention quick. In 3 weeks, we're doing our 50th podcast episode.
Yes.
So we're doing a Q&A. So if you have any questions, send us an email, send us a message on social media, however you want to contact us. Send us your question, and we'll try to get to it, depending on how many questions we get. We may not get to all of them, but we'll answer the...
We did get a bunch the last last podcast because it was also a video one. We had a bunch of YouTube comments of people asking some questions. We got one of them was one or two of them were Facebook messages.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and now if there's the same question or variation of it multiple times, then we'll probably just cover it in one broad thing. But we will try and go through and answer questions.
I roped Steve in, so if you have any Steve questions you've always wanted,
oh Jesus,
be sure to ask them because we're going to make him be a part of it.
God.
He was not excited that I signed him up for it, but it's okay.
So today's topic is a good one. I think I've gotten better at it every year. I get better at it. Something I've worked on is rituals to help with productivity in the garage or shop. And this goes if you are a professional and you do this every day. I guess we're sort of like a professional, except we don't
Very big quotations around that.
Yeah, I'm not professional, but I work in the shop every day as if I was professional. Or if you're just a weekend warrior, so to speak, or if you're just working, nights and weekends after your day job to try and get projects done. Because that's one of those things that we have a lot of variations of productivity podcasts around the garage and shop and stuff, different variations of this topic. And it's because we get comments and questions all the time where people are like, I can't believe you guys get so much done. And if I could spend every day working on the cars, it's like, well, I always, even when I had a day job, I used to get a lot done on cars and projects because of trying some of these rituals. And
pre-COVID, all of our IronTrap stuff was filmed after work in the evenings.
Yep. All that stuff was being done, and there's just some things that and as I get older and get understand what I'm looking to do and accomplish with my work, I'm able to get even more efficient because some of these topics ideas we're gonna cover go into that. So Steve's starting the Green Roadster.
Yeah.
Started right up. That's good.
Yeah, it is.
Probably can't hear it on the thing, but
we can hear it and feel it a little bit.
Yeah, I can actually feel it through the wood floors in here. You can feel the idle a little bit. So, should we wait for him?
Nah, it's all right.
All right. So if you hear some engine noise, it's a real garage.
Yeah.
Stuff's going on, even though we're upstairs. So the first one is kind of an obvious one, but it does really help. Once a week, if you can, sweep, clean the shop, the floor, and you don't have to do I don't mean like a spring cleaning. I think that's good to do like once or twice a year, like a major open the doors, blow the shop out, clean up, totally clean out. But like once a week, I try and make a habit of cleaning up the shop. And
It's become your like Sunday morning ritual, right? For the most part.
yeah, for me it's Sundays. Sometimes if our timing is right with filming and projects, I will have Steve do that on a Friday afternoon. Like today is a good example. If we're swapping cars around on a Friday, when Steve gets the green, like today he's we'll pull the green Roadster out and bring Mike's car. So before these two cars swap spaces, Steve will let the green Roadster sit outside, sweep up under where the car was, clean out around it, put the tools away, just get everything. It just makes it so much nicer. But yeah, for me on Sundays, I'll work. I usually work in the shop on Sundays. So I'll work all day, and in the last hour or two of the day, or if I have a lot of visitors on a Sunday, while I'm BSing with friends, I'll be cleaning up the whole time and putting tools away and cleaning, whatever. And I've said it a lot in the Week in the Life of videos and whatever. Like when I am working on a project, especially a metal fab project, I have every tool in the toolbox out.
It does look like someone blew up a toolbox sometimes.
I'm really, really bad with that. Cords all over the place, hoses. It's just a mess. But I try to once a week, even though it can be annoying, I'm trying like put everything away. Even though I know on Monday I'm probably going to use some of those tools again, you just put them away, clean them up. It's just easier because what I find is I can't find a tool because it's so buried 3 layers deep on my tool cart.
Sometimes that tool cart's like you just look at it and shit falls off of it. If you walk by it, it just like
don't breathe on it.
Yeah, it's bad.
Don't look at it wrong. Don't breathe on it. And it's a pain in the butt too because like Steve uses some of my tools too, so he comes over. He's like, "Where are all the tape measures?" I'm like, "I have all 17 somewhere on this cart."
Yeah, or like when you're doing the Merc, the clamps.
Oh my god,
there's just clamps everywhere.
In the car, on the car, under the car, tool cart. That's why I have if I gathered all of my sheet metal clamps up, I probably have like 100, but at any one time I can only find 4.
Yeah,
because they're scattered.
Clecos are like that too.
Yeah.
Depending on if there's a car in heavy sheet metal modifications, it's like where'd all the Clecos go? Like, oh, they're everywhere.
Yeah, so I think that's a good ritual to have. The other good thing, and I've seen even like I saw Jesse James mention it in one of his social media posts, like to clear your head, or if you're stuck on a project, like he mentioned that, and I respect him. He has some good stuff that he posts up, and that's a good point. Like it's a good thing to take a day and just sweep and clean the shop, especially if you're a good stopping point, or maybe you're a little stuck or whatever. I also think like talking to some higher end guys that I look up to that I've gone to their shops. Some of those shops, you notice, real high-end shops, it's like an operating room.
I mean, every high-end hot rod shop or like super high metal guy, like metal shaper, their shops just look absolutely clean. I've never been in one that looks like absolute chaos.
Yeah, and I think what the key to that is, in a way, I think actually it was one time Nate mentioned that to me.
Oh, yeah.
When I went to visit him at his shop, and it's like, he made a good point. It's like, well, if your workspace is dirty, your work's not going to be clean. Like it's kind of like it makes sense. So like I started thinking about that. Sometimes when I like the shop gets so crazy and dirty and unorganized, it's like your work's going to suffer because everything's not like. So like when I'm laying out a panel or I'm starting a project that I really give a shit. Like when I did the firewall for the 33, I was like, I want to nail this. So like I cleaned everything up, and when I'm doing my layout, everything's like clean and out of the way. And it just makes, I find that I do better work the more I'm, like that. And when I've been doing the roof on the Mercury this winter, I made a point a lot to sweep up and clean the shop in between different steps because I just wanted things to be right, and it helped. I noticed that the work became better.
Oh, definitely.
So, I don't know. I think...
And it saves you time, too. Like, you put your tools away, you can just, it's in the drawer. Yep. You don't have to spend... I've spent so much time of my life just wandering around in circles going, where did I put that? And then you spend 5 minutes and you just stop and it's like right in front of you the whole time. You're like, I wasted so much time.
And it's even worse when I didn't work in the shop every day. And if you're like a weekend warrior type, car guy or girl, like if you're only working in the shop 2 or 3 nights a week and you just leave a mess wherever, if you don't work on your car again for another week, you're going to forget what you were doing, where your tools were. What
I do that at home all the time. Yeah, it's so bad.
It's It's not good because I can bear. If I set a tool down and 15 minutes later and it's a mess, I can't find it. It takes me 10 minutes. So if we went a week, it'd take me like hours to be like, where the heck did I put that?
The whole world would come unhinged.
Yeah, and that's why I have that should be one of our tips, but I don't have it in here. The common things like safety glasses and tape measures and stuff like that. I have way more than any human should have in one. I've been having to wear reading glasses now when I'm TIG welding because my eyes, I'm just getting older and noticed that I need them. So I just went and bought a 20 pack of them off Amazon because it was I know that if I buy just one pair, I won't be able to find them. So that 20 pack, I've already had to go up to the house and steal the 2 pairs in the house I have.
I saw there was a pair in the house right inside the front door.
Yeah. So I've had to steal some out of the house because I couldn't find them in the garage. Already the 10 pairs are somehow magically, no idea where they went. So
we're going to finish a car and get it on the road this winter. Or this spring, you're going to be driving it and a pair of glasses going to fall out from under the dash. You're like, oh, look, there they are.
There they are, yeah. It's just like flashlights. You're like, whoa, there's that light that died under the dash. So that's number one. I think that's a good one. So I've been to friends' shops where you go and it's obvious that person has not for years, just did a reset in their garage. And if you do that, I promise it'll just feel better and you'll be more productive, 100%. Number 2, I did this one a handful of years ago when I started after I got this shop, I started getting more serious in getting good equipment or better equipment or more industrial equipment. I went through the shop and I kind of did an evaluation in my head of what tools or equipment were taking up floor space and I didn't ever use them or didn't work as well as I wanted them to, and I needed something better. Yeah. So even though my shop was way bigger than what I had in my last house, after a few years, it was all the floor space was taken up around the perimeter with tools and toolbox and this and that. And it quickly got to the point where I was like, I didn't have any room. And we've done that a few times in the shop. We'd had to reorganize or move things around. So kind of doing an evaluation of your tools and equipment you have that are taking up valuable space. Do you ever use them, or is the tool kind of like a pain in the ass to use? And for me, it was that. We do a lot of estates where sometimes we're there and they're like, oh, do you want that bandsaw? That's how that's the ones in my head. I got an old wood bandsaw that somebody had converted to cut metal.
2 different bandsaws. Horizontal and vertical.
Oh yeah, I had 2 different ones. Yeah, so I had a horizontal though that I bought it in a state where I was buying a bunch of hot rod stuff, and it was there. I didn't have a vertical bandsaw, and I was somebody had converted it to work off, to run slower with pulleys, so that you could cut metal with it. But it was it was still underpowered. It was 110. It just didn't. It worked okay. You could cut sheet metal in it, but you couldn't cut bar stock and stuff like that efficiently. And you couldn't control the speed either, which was a pain in the butt. So that was one that after a while, I'm I never use this thing because every time I think about using it, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So,
and the horizontal, I don't think we ever used.
So the horizontal,
that came from where you got the Bridgeport, right?
Yeah, and it was really big. It was okay, but I found that for the space it took, I would just use the vertical bandsaw.
Or a chop saw.
And what I also found is a lot of those, I got the horizontal bandsaw because my thought was, I can make perfectly true cuts with it. Well, what I found out after having multiple horizontal bandsaws, most horizontal bandsaws, unless you really dial them in, they don't cut true.
Yeah.
When you're trying to make something really, really straight. And I'm the couple of times I wanted to use it, I ended up having to sand the tubing anyways. I'm I'll just do it on the chop saw or vertical bandsaw and do the same thing and just, sand it to be perfect. And it's so that one was great. It was a nice big industrial horizontal bandsaw on wheels, but it took up so much space, so I ended up just tucking it away and it was a pain in the butt to use. So I've had a couple of things. So go through and kind of figure out, I already in my head have a few tools that we have that if we could get the space I would like to have. So I haven't gotten a straight cut shear, a stomp shear, or power shear, because I know that if I buy, actually I had one in my old house. I had like a 3 foot or 3.5 foot wide vintage stomp shear.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I had one in my old house. I sold it right before I moved here because I already knew it was too small.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. Like, I most of the time when I needed a really good straight cut, it was for a large panel, and I couldn't
just cut
use
it by hand anyway.
Yeah, so I really need like a 6 foot. An 8 foot would be phenomenal, but I don't know if we have space for it, or I could justify it. But like a 5 or 6 foot would be ideal. At least you could take a 4x8 sheet and cut, the one way.
Yep.
And I think much bigger than 4 or 5 feet. Most panels on any cars I'm doing aren't that any bigger than that. Mm-hmm. But like, it's just you could probably look around your shop and be like, all right, this tool I don't use, and if I get rid of these few random tools, and I go in French shops that like that, it's like there's just stuff everywhere, and you're like, do you ever use that?
Or even fixing tools.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Remember my favorite one is your vintage shear that you had for years. That you had to like hold the cord in like a certain way to make it work, and then like you not lose that spot in the middle of a cut, and you're trying to cut and you fuck the panel up because you're trying to get the cord right. It's like, if it's fixable, maybe spend one day a year and you fix all your.
I'm terrible at that, to be honest.
It was so bad. Jason Moss had to take it and fix it for you.
Well, he wanted the buyer of the shear. And he was like, I'll fix the cord. But yeah, I mean, that is a great one. If if the tool isn't working or isn't working correctly, is it because the tool sucks, or isn't what
does it
you
need
need
to be fixed?
Or does it just need to be fixed? So like a couple that I have on my list, we're going to do now with the new building all put up, we have a plan to move a bunch of the equipment that's in the workshop to the new building, because tire machine, tire balancer, we've already we got rid of my old blast cabinet because it was a little on the small side for what I wanted to use it for, other than small stuff. It was a decent sized cabinet, but there was a lot of times where I wanted to blast bigger things. So we got a new cabinet from Eastwood, which is still in the crate that we're going to put up. And a bunch of those machines we're going to move over to the new building, because most of the time we're using the tire machine, it's to take off old tires that so we can sell wheels. So like, we only put a set of tires on a car when we're just working on it, and we may not need that again for 3 months or 2 months. So we're moving that stuff over, and what that's going to do is free up a bunch of room that I can hopefully make a spot for a shear.
Or another project.
Yeah, hopefully just a shear. I'm going to try and buy a shear. But then I could aggressively shop for a shear and get what I want the first time. But I'm always thinking of that, like, all right, the next time we reorganize the shop or move stuff around, I'm going to get rid of this. So I have a welding bench over in the one back corner of the shop that I've had forever. I made it in my old house. And at my old house, I had a Beverly shear and a straight cut shear bolted to it that I would cut with. Well, now it's too close to the wall, and every time I want to use the Beverly shear or use the straight cut shear to cut sheet metal, you end up running the sheet metal into the wall, and you can't move the bench. So I'm going to put stakes on them and make them, I could put them in the stake table now, and that will clean that bench up so that I can use the whole bench for welding and
or just piling
junk on it.
Because that table that's basically the only table left in the shop besides Steve's rolling workbench. So that table, sometimes you look at it, it's like, what's on there? Just a pile of stuff.
It gets a pile. But I want to get those two tools. I don't use them as much as I would like because they're always you're always running the sheet metal into the wall, and it's like I need to clear them out. I don't want to get rid of that bench, but I would like to clear them out. But someday I may get rid of that bench because now we have the huge stake table.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things you're always, but like that's a good example of like you can get more efficient. Like I got the stake table now, and or the acorn table I should say is what it's really nicknamed for it. I can move a lot of my tools that are around and put them on that with stakes, and then when you're not using them, you can put them under a bench or the brake or whatever, and get rid of some stuff on floor space.
Yeah.
So that's where my head's at. But yeah, just do if you can go around once a year and just evaluate your shop. Is everything are you able to work efficiently with the layout or the tools you have? And don't be emotional. If you don't ever use a tool or it's a pain in the ass to use, just sell it and get the better one. You know, it's going to make your life easier. And we got a nice dual bandsaw, and I passed on a lot of them I saw over the years, and then we bought that and something else, I feel like. But it was mainly that at an estate. And it was like the right one. It was somebody had gone through and redone it and cleaned it all up, and it's really, really nice. And it cuts beautiful. I just had to change blades a few times to get one that works good for us. But now that we have it, it's like...
That thing works fantastic.
It's awesome. So same with my lathe. I had a lathe that worked okay for me that I got from Eastwood. It was a hand-me-down from their R&D department. And after a while, that lathe, I got better. It got sloppy. It was always borderline too small for a lot of stuff. So I started actively looking, and I knew I was going to get a lathe that was bigger. And I sold my lathe to my buddy Jason, and it was great for his shop, and I got a bigger lathe. And it's like, it takes up more space, but I use that lathe way more now because I can do more work on it, and I have a separate mill. So like that stuff's all take up more space, but the space is being more efficient, with the space. So that's a good one. Number 3 was you came up with this.
Oh,
one.
make a list.
Yeah,
because I'm very scatterbrained, so making a list of like not necessarily what to do in order, but a physical reminder either in your phone, or a lot of times I used to just take scrap cardboard and just write a physical list out to remind yourself mentally, and there's something to look at. You finish a task, you cross it off, and then you can look at what you need to do next. A physical reminder, because like you said, weekend warriors, you're only out there every couple days, or maybe only on the weekends. It's good to have that physical reminder there sitting in front of you of what, you could make a note that you started on it or where you left off, so you're not forgetting and having to go back and check stuff that you didn't mark off the list.
And we use it a lot with us here at IronTrap. The if you have an iPhone, great thing is they have the Notes app that just comes preloaded in your phone. We use that like crazy because you can actually make checklists on it, and you can share them with other people, and then it puts that list on their phone. So like for us, we all share. We have a to-do list for every week. So as I think of things, Mike thinks of things, we put them on our own to-do list with checklists, and we mark them off. And then we also know, like if we're traveling, I can look at this, and Steve checked off a couple of things. What we also have on there, and another good list one, is supplies or parts that you need. So throughout the day, Steve will be like, oh, we got to get this, this, and this to get this done. I'll quick make it on the list so that way at night, when I'm sitting on the couch, I can be like, oh yeah, I got to order some stuff from, Amazon or Rock Auto or whatever the place is, and you just go on, or Speedway, and just go on and like knock out all that stuff on the list, and you don't forget.
Yeah, talk about ruining your weekend. Is like Sunday, you used up all of your flap discs. You spent all week and forgot to order flap discs, and you go out there all gung-ho on a Saturday. Like, I can get a bunch of work done. You walk in and you go, I forgot to order flap discs.
Then you got to run out or whatever, but and also sometimes like I've been finding that I buy, and this isn't necessarily the list thing, but we've been buying like on Amazon or from whoever, buying stuff more in bulk. I've over the years been trying to break Steve of that bad habit that a lot of people get in. They go and buy the one flap disc because they only need it right then. Well, if you're building cars for the rest of your life,
you're going to need 100 of them.
Why buy one? I mean, I buy a pack of 50 or maybe not 100 flap discs. But sometimes like we just got a bunch in of the little 3-inch quick release sanding discs for like my 3-inch sander. It's like all the different grits. And I bought them in bags of 50 or 100 because it's like the Scotch-Brite ones, the 120, the 80 grit, the 40 grit. I got all those in bags of 50 because sometimes on a project you might blow through 3 of them in a day because you're doing some sanding welds or whatever. So it's like, don't be afraid to get them in bulk because it's a pain in the ass if you got to be.
Brake lines. Steve's really bad with brake lines. He'll go to the store and buy just 25 foot. It's like, you just buy 100 foot roll. We're going to build 7 more brake systems this year.
That roll, we just had this conversation. It's like, but that roll is like really big and massive. I'm like, I don't care it probably, if you average it out, it's like 60% of the cost, buying it that way.
Yeah, bulk's always cheaper.
And it's a pain in the butt when you got to round. That way, if you only have to buy brake line like one every 5 cars instead of every car, it's just nothing more frustrating than making brake lines and you get down to the last line and you're like 2 feet too short.
Got to run to the store again.
Oh my God. So we do that a lot. But making the lists, it's for project cars. We're a crazy list people here. So I have lists for like, long range lists of project car stuff. So sometimes I'll just go and walk around the building. And even if it's a car I'm not going to work on for a year from now, making a list of like sometimes parts that you're looking for. So if you're at the swap meet,
yep.
you go, oh, you know what? I think I do need, what's that trim I need for that Lincoln I'm working? I'm not going to start it for a year or two, but like look at your phone and go, oh, left front fender trim. That's what I need. Oh, this is the right front. You didn't just buy it.
Yeah, we now that you say that, we have lists for everything. Production ideas, podcast ideas, just lists on lists on lists.
It makes it easy in your phone because then you just go and
it's with you all the time.
Yeah, it's always with you. And we've talked about it with the vintage magazine thing.
Yeah.
We have that. I share it with Mike. So when Mike's looking at magazines when we get in a state, he knows which ones I need. And it's not like sitting on my office.
Like it used, dude, when your office was in the house, there was just boxes of vintage magazines and piles of vintage magazines.
Yeah.
Like, which ones have you looked at? Like, when we moved them all in here, there was like a box and a half worth of magazines. You're like, these are all doubles I didn't realize I had.
Yeah, I had sometimes 3 of the same magazines. So by getting a list and getting more organized, it's just, you're just more efficient. We have a lot of clutter here, so I got to have lists because the clutter would be out of control if I didn't have the lists and go through. So make some lists. Another one is organizing your tools or your toolbox regularly. So whatever works for you. For me, I do it once or twice a year. It's usually based on the amount of rage I have at that moment. If I can't find something or the drawers are getting stuck because there's too many
I've seen this
broken screwdrivers and you're like, hey, just
seen
freak
this
out.
happen in real time.
Yeah, so then I freak out and I stop. And I empty the drawer out, and I totally redo everything. So,
or marry someone with insane OCD, and she organizes your toolbox for you.
Oh.
My wife organized all of my wrenches one time because she was looking for a size and couldn't find it. And I opened my wrench drawer, and they're all perfectly aligned, like stacked. And I was like, what were you doing? She's like, I needed a size, and I couldn't. She was doing something in the house.
Yeah.
She's like, I organized all of your wrenches. I'm like, okay, but I liked it the way it was.
Yeah.
She's like, I couldn't find them. I'm like, I can't find them either, but I enjoy that.
But there's a lot of times, like, I think it's like your junk drawer in your house. Every person, car person or hobbyist or whatever, you have that drawer that's like ends up being your junk drawer or whatever. I call it my scribe drawer. It's just a nickname that I call it that everybody else knows when I say, hey, it's in the scribe drawer. That's like my little drawer. It's a thin drawer. It has the scribes, markers, squares in it, safety glasses, and calipers, and a lot of stuff that I use like every day. Specialty scribes and measuring devices, whatever. But what happens is that drawer becomes a catch-all of all things that are like that. And somehow I just organized that drawer this winter, and it was like I had 7 squares in there. I'm like, why do I need 7 squares there? Like, I need maybe 2. Like 1 if I can't find it, and I'm like, you know what? If I lose 7 squares in the middle of a project, I'm the problem, not the squares. So I just made a box and I just threw a bunch of stuff in there. It was all this random stuff. I had a magnifying glass because I didn't want to tell myself that I needed glasses to read drill bits and stuff. And it's like, okay, just throw this away. I got readers now, and go through and it's like scribes and center punches that were broken. They got the tip was broken or the automatic center punches that they didn't work anymore. I'm like, all right, we don't need 7 of these. Have 2 good working ones. They're cheap enough. If it is broken,
I'll buy another one.
Just get another one.
You need to go through your fuck shit up drawer. That drawer is getting pretty. That thing.
Yeah, but the fuck shit up drawer is like, I mean, a broken chisel can be another chisel just with a grinder. So
well, you need to go through your screwdriver drawer and take all of your broken screwdrivers and put them in that drawer.
I will agree with that. And I need to get rid of some wire brushes in the fuck shit up drawer because there's like, there's wire brushes that are beyond their lifespan.
Dude, there's an alarming amount of broken flathead screwdrivers in your screwdriver drawer.
Yes.
Like a lot.
Yes. So they need to be moved to repurposed into the fuck shit up drawer. And yeah,
We need to put a label on your screwdriver drawer. It says these are not pry bars, because all of them are broken from that.
I mean, to be fair, most of it is me. Yeah, I won't blame that on Steve or anybody else.
I've broken maybe one screwdriver.
Yeah, it's a lot of that's me. But if you can go through and organize like one drawer, maybe you don't have to do your whole toolbox, but I guarantee that you have a lot of tools in your toolbox that are probably broken or don't use.
Yeah.
Or I went through the toolbox and just found like tools I would get that I'm like, oh, I might use that someday. It's like a specialty tool. 5 years later, you open it like, I forgot I had this tool. So even if there was an instance, I didn't use it, and just get rid of it because the drawers get horribly out of control, at least for me. Choose. This is a good one. And you kind of we both had the same idea in different words, but choose a day of the week to work with no distractions.
Yeah.
So for me, again, sometimes it's Sundays. I will not look at my phone. A big distraction, I think, for all of us is the cell phone. For me, it's become really bad because my phone is always ringing and dinging and text messages, trying to run a business and, everything that we juggle in a day. Sometimes on a Sunday or even during the weekday, I will put my phone on silent over on the bandsaw or on the back of a car, and I'll turn Pandora on or whatever the music is, and I will not look at my phone for it's great now because Mike's on the premises.
Yeah.
So before I used to always have to keep an eye on my phone if Mike had a question. Now he just walks over and goes, "Hey, what's up with this?"
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. But I won't look at my phone all day, and I get so much more done.
Oh yeah, it's the amount of phone calls and messages we get in a day it's quite alarming.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be it's hard to stay focused if your phone's just going off constantly. I struggle with that a lot because I'll be in the middle of something in the warehouse, putting parts away or doing whatever, and you get a phone call. And you're talking to them, and you're wandering around while you talk, and then you hang up the phone. You're like,
"What was I doing?"
Oh shit! Or you forget and you start doing something else, and then 30 minutes later, you see this pile of stuff. You're like, "Oh, I was working. Shit, I got to finish this now."
Yeah, it is. It is for you. It's super difficult because one of your hats is customer service, unfortunately. So you're dealing with the phone calls and emails, and I generally only do that side of it at night. So I'll go through the inbox.
Oh
or
yeah,
whatever.
if you call us and ask for Matt, I'm not. It's going to be me, and you better have a good reason why you need. I'm the gatekeeper for Matt. He's in the garage being productive. What do you need?
Yeah, and that's why if you've known us for a while, or if you've been a friend or a customer of mine for a long time, you will notice it's not me being mean. I have distanced myself from the parts business. So if you send me a message on Facebook, because we've been Facebook friends for years, because you're a car guy, I'm probably going to either A, not respond, or on purpose, tough love, or B, I'm going to just be blunt and say you need to email or call the business number. And I've been doing it even with local car guy friends. I've been like, you need to talk to Mike or send an email or here's the business number and text, because what has been happening is over the years, it's like I can't shoot videos or get work done because...
And A, he doesn't know. You generally don't know what we have.
I've done it on purpose now where I've made myself distant so much that I don't even know what we have. And we joke about it, but I did on purpose because I am generally a helpful person. And I will take the time to be like, oh yeah, we have this, and this. And I end up taking care of that thing that distracts me from what I should be doing.
That's why Matt pays me to do that.
Yes. So... a lot of that stuff, I mean, we even have one right now that's one of the local guys that I know texted me or Facebook messaged me about a bunch of stuff he needs. And it's we're trying to do the go through of how to. Mike's texted me a list of the parts we have so I can text this dude and tell him what we have and the price. And it's I'm still struggling with this. I'm I need to get his phone number and have Mike call him or text him through the business number. And so
we still struggle with all of these. We're not perfect. All of these are on a list for us because we struggle with it every day.
Yeah. So if there's a day of the week that you can or night that you can, just unplug, but also like no distractions. So for me, it's also some days where like I'll pick a random Saturday if I really need to get a project done or it's something that's really need to focus. I will come out on. I don't usually work in the shop on Saturdays too much, so I'll come out on a Saturday when nobody knows I'm here. Because Sundays people just drop in because they know that's like the
Don't
day.
say this. Not everyone's going to start showing up on Saturdays.
People do, and we've said it's Sunday service since the beginning of us having IronTrap. So on a Saturday, I'll lock the door though. Like I close the door's locked. You might hear music playing, but I'm not going to answer the door generally.
The music's on, but no one's home.
Right. So I will kind of, do that because I want to be in, I want to be in the groove, so to speak, and I'll be doing something that's more difficult and focus on that. So if you could pick a time, don't look at your phone, inviting your buddies over to drink beer while you're trying to get some super important thing done or be productive usually doesn't work out.
Yeah, definitely.
Most times it doesn't. Sometimes it does. For most people, probably doesn't. No. So number 6, get the tedious prep work or part of the preparation part of the project done the day before or the work session before when you're doing the difficult things. So, I just did this like earlier this week. I was making the patterns for all the pieces to make the driver's side door stainless, and it's like I had a few hours at the end of the day where I didn't have a lot going on. I had finished some other stuff. I just laid out and plasma cut and ground and deburred all the pieces, and then I knew the next day I'm coming in fresh to like clamp and weld those. Yeah. So, and you said for the warehouse or for the parts business you do.
I do that sometimes when I palletize stuff. A lot of time the stuff that we ship is not regular size.
Yeah.
So I have to 9 times out of 10, if you get a freight shipment from us, I had to build quote unquote a pallet, take 2 or 3 pallets and make them one. So a lot of times I'll do that work ahead of time, and then the next day band it, wrap it, get all the paperwork stuff done, because it's a process to build a pallet, to make it all the right size and dimension, and sometimes it's time consuming, and it's like, well, I got an hour at the end of the day. I'll build this pallet real quick, and then tomorrow drag the parts out, shrink wrap them, band, all the other stuff to get it out the door. That part takes 15 minutes. Building a pallet can be a couple hours, or crate even.
Yeah. So that I try and do that with bead rolling or anything, because I've also found that like if it's something that's requires more focus, I guess for what you're doing isn't quite always the case, but like if there's something like I need a bead roll or panel, or use the English wheel or whatever, where I'm doing something maybe a little more focused, trying to push through at the end of the day, do the pattern and start that panel, it ends up not turning out as good as I would like. So if you just prep everything and then you come in the next day all fresh, ready to go, and then you do it, I feel like I get more done, which in productivity you're not rushing it, and you come out the next day and you're like, oh man, that panel I made at 457 yesterday probably isn't it isn't good enough.
And if you have that, if you do your prep work and you still have an hour, clean the shop or do something else to help the productivity, so the next morning you're ready to go and can just get right to it.
Yeah, I'll put like the dies I want in the bead roller, I'll clean it all up, get everything, ready to go, get all the lights set up where you want it to be. So you just walk out, you turn the light on, your lube for the panel is right there, Croil, whatever you use, and you spray, you're ready to go. Or if you're machining a part or something, you walk out, it's already in the machine, you just check, make sure everything's tight, and you start going. So that seems to work for me when it's I try and find a good stopping point for the day or the project, and then the next day you're coming out fresh and you're working on it. And it just, especially when you're doing a project that takes days or weeks, it's good to just do it, and have those little stopping points, so to speak. And that rolls into the next thing. We talk about it all the time. Enjoy the small victories.
Yep.
So that's the same kind of idea. Like, don't have to rush through and push through to a major project like that, like building a car. You don't need to just start rapid fire going to the next thing. This isn't a build show. Like, stop. Okay, this is a good stopping point, or I made a good progress. Stop and be like, all right, just savor that moment. Push the car outside like we
Push
do.
the car outside, sit down and drink, if you're at home, drink a beer or have a snack and just sit there and enjoy that victory. It's not, SEMA's not next week. The car doesn't have to be done to go on a trailer in 10 hours.
Yes.
It's just sit back and enjoy the process.
And I kind of learned one thing that I do that, like, I find I'm inspired by a lot of my friends that are craftsmen and different stuff. So, like, my buddy Justin that did a lot of my tattoos, like, I have a lot of fairly large scale tattoos. So, like, I always remember when he tattoos me, like, he's working on something and he'll, like, music's playing, he'll just stop and, like, you just into the music, like, whether you're dancing around or just, like, looking at, but he's standing back and looking at my back or whatever he's working on. It's just like, you're, like, vibing with the music, but you're looking at the thing and just looking it over. So, like, for me, I find myself, I took that little bit of him and I find myself doing that where you, like, stop and you're, like, into the music and you're looking at the car, like, yeah, cool. Like, like, you're taking it all in, you're looking at it, you take that moment of that small victory, but you're also, like, just making sure what you're doing is going the right way. You don't have to be so I don't know why people get so focused on trying to rush through, and especially when it comes to, like, chopping a car or
they're hyper focused on what directly is in front of them and not the big picture of the whole thing.
Yes, and trying to get it done. Like, this again, I say it again, this isn't Monster Garage or whatever TV show you grew up watching. Like, you don't need to get it done in this, like, insane timeline. So, like, take your time, look at it.
Unless you own a shop and you do need to get it done, then it's slightly.
But even then, like, you can't be rushing it to the point where you're, like, the quality suffers.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that's part of productivity. Like, if you got to do it twice or three times, you're not productive. So I've tried. I was really bad at that. I've talked about it a few times. Like, when I worked at Eastwood, I got in this bad habit of forcing myself to push through to get work done to finish a video. Our whole thing is getting content shot. And I've tried to get better. Like, take my time, step back. I don't want to have to redo that panel off camera because I rushed to get the video done. So the stopping, enjoying the small victories, rolling the car outside and standing back and looking at it and be like, yeah, I dig that. I like what's going on here. I like the flow. Or, at the end of the day, I'll stop and, like, that panel or that part you're working on, I'll just clamp it back on the car and just be like, all right, let me, look at this. And the last hour of the day, I'm just staring at the car, listening to music, but you know if you like it or you don't like it.
Yeah.
It helps with the next day, what you're doing. So, and that rolls into the next one. I didn't plan this, but it's working. Walk away and start with a fresh look the next morning, or let the car speak to you.
Yeah. I mean, we've said that it's almost as much as the small victories in all the videos. When you do something to a car, there's a lot of times where before it's tack welded or finalized, you'll a day or two looking at it or constantly asking Steve and I or anyone that comes by the shop, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And we have a group chat with a bunch of our buddies, a bunch of the guys that have been on the channel over the years that he'll send photos to of, like, what do you guys think of this versus that? Like, what do you guys think? We're going to think on it for a couple days before we actually do it.
And when I ask for that, some people are not good at this, but you have to be good at taking criticism. So I do those things, not that I'm looking for a pat on the back. I still have a problem with Steve with that. He's more of like oh, it looks good. Like, because people are sometimes afraid to tell you something doesn't. And
I used to do that when we first started the channel. Like, I can't really say I'm not bashful now. I was like, nah, that doesn't look right.
Yeah, so I try and what I've found over the years is I'm actually way more of a critic than anyone I ask for it. Yeah. But sometimes I test people because, like, I know it's not right, but I'll ask other people. And if they notice it right away and I'm like, I don't know, that doesn't look, I don't really like that. And you're like, all right, that's what my gut feeling was. But, like, the one I really do a lot that's a good habit or a ritual is before you start, I'm just talking about chopping cars, it's in my head because I just did the Mercury, but, like, before you finish weld the roof back on or that panel on that you made, take a step back. Like I mentioned in the last one, I'll clamp it on the car, or like I've been doing the molding for the hardtop. I'll clamp that piece I made into the roof, and then I shut the lights off. We go in for the night. I will not come out in the middle of the night and look at it. I will, in the morning, what I do is I come out, my cup of coffee, open the door, I flip the light on, I walk right over to whatever that thing is, and with a fresh set of eyes, just look at it. And don't let yourself get used to how the car looks or that piece, because I found you sometimes get used to how it is, and you get used to it not looking right.
Yeah, exactly.
So I walk in, flip the lights on, go right over that car and look at it. And like, do I like the gap? Does something stand out to me? Because I relate that to a person that's walking up on your car for the first time. And if you walk up from 10 foot away and something doesn't look right, and I think everybody's seen a car that's been chopped, that the roof is like too flat, or the shape isn't right, and that person didn't roll it outside, didn't do that like last look. They probably rushed through it, and the shape isn't right. And it's kind of funny because people are like, oh my God, I can't believe the shape of the Mercury roof is like so good. It looks so right. I'm like, to me, it's obvious. Like I stepped back and just looked at everything, and
you spent a month making sure it was like the way it needed to be.
It looked right, and the shape was good, because if you force yourself to just like push through, sometimes you see it where the roof is too flat, or there's an area that's like, and everybody can pick everybody's car apart. So I'm sure somebody will look at my car and they'll find something that maybe could have been shaped a little better. You could pick everything apart, but I'm talking about the car you look at that like, it looks like they just laid a piece of flat steel on the roof. And there's guys on YouTube, unfortunately, that are showing them doing that type of thing where they're leaning their body weight or a body hammer on it and tack welding.
You don't need an English wheel. You just push it into place and weld it.
Yeah. And then the panel doesn't have enough shape, or the roof doesn't flow, or it looks like Homer Simpson designed his favorite car. Like, don't do that.
I wish this was a visual podcast. I'd love to put that clip of Homer's car.
Yeah. If anybody's seen The Simpsons, you probably know what I'm talking about. But like, you need to step back. You need to look at it. But doing that ritual of like, before you permanently weld it into the car, clamp it in place or leave it for the night and come out with fresh eyes, flip the lights on. For me, it's always like I'm drinking my morning cup of coffee, stare at it, I walk around the car, turn some music on, and just spend a few minutes and just stare at the car. Or even if you can't see, like, you can't work on the car, because a lot of people, I feel like their garage is attached to the house. Just go out, like, in the, at night. Just flip the lights on and stand back and look at that thing, and just, like, if it shouts at you and it looks weird, it's going to look weird all the time. So a
lot of times ask your wife. My wife is very blunt and honest with me about things.
Kids and wives.
Yeah, you just ask them. I mean, she might not know anything about cars. Just ask her what she thinks. She might bluntly tell you.
I've done that to Kate. I've been like, she'll like come out to say goodbye because she's going to work or whatever. I'm like, what do you think of this? Whatever. And sometimes it backfires because she like, it's good, but she'll be like, I don't know.
I'm indifferent. Yeah.
Yeah. Or she'll say the thing that you're like, that's not what I was like. They like pick out something different. And you're like, I'm not even working on that. Like, of course it's.
Those wheels look terrible. You're like, I just cut the roof off this car.
That's what I'm going to ask you. I know. Those are just mock-up wheels. Why are those tires are terrible. Like, you're not going to drive on those tires, are you? And I'm like, I asked you about the stainless trim on the roof. Why are you looking at the focus? So sometimes it backfires, but sometimes it's like, okay, if the average person thinks it looks decent, then it's probably okay because they're indifferent.
Yeah.
So that's one that works a lot for me, and I've been doing it. I've been more consistently doing that with these major projects. We have number 9. Take your time to be more productive.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot. I've been a proponent of this too. Rushing to get something done and like pushing through and rushing. And then 6 months later or 3 weeks later, you go back to do something and you notice that while you were rushing, you messed it up. Mm-hmm. And then you have to totally redo it again.
I 100% am still learning this, and I'm now fixing fuck-ups or fixing stuff that I don't like because I did that. So the big one, and I learned this through the roof on the Mercury, The doors on the Sweetheart Roadster I'm going to probably redo. It's great. I made them from scratch. In video, they look decent. One thing I didn't think about is it was hard to get the lines of the body lines to line up correctly. I wasn't happy with how they were lining up. Well, I realized that because the doors have shape to them, three-dimensional shape, that the line that goes across the body actually isn't a straight line. You have to make the line curve to make it appear straight.
And we figured this out actually on the back of the Mercury,
Yes.
that detail.
Because it was more dramatic. The curvature is larger
Yeah.
on that. But it was like, I haven't been able to get the doors to line up quite right on the...
That makes sense. I didn't even think about that, yeah.
But because the door has shape, you need to actually make a slight curvature. And when I made the body line... Now, the other thing is, I didn't have the tools when I did those doors. Like, I didn't have a pull max to stamp something. I did it on the pipe anvil, which you can only really make a straight line on.
Yeah.
But I made the line totally straight, but when you put it on the car, the lines don't match up or match up as good as I want them to. So those doors I pushed through and did, and I've never been happy with them. And now that if you're bitching at me about the Sweetheart Roadster, I am going to tackle getting over the hump and get this thing ready.
He's been having an emotional breakdown about the doors because for months it's been, I think I'm going to fix the doors. I don't know what I'm doing with the doors. Now he's to the point of totally changing the doors to something much different. Because at first you were talking about just fixing what was there, and now you're to the point of totally redoing
I might cut the whole. I might only save the inner structure.
Yeah.
And then just totally start over for the skins and make it all. I think I can do it a lot quicker. I think I might make a die for the pull max. I'm not sure yet.
We're also going to do both doors back to back and not wait a year between doors.
Yes, I will. The only nice thing is the inner structures are made and they hinge and latch.
Yeah.
So I'm just making a skin. So I think I'm going to do that. But like taking your time, if we weren't, I should have taken my time and redid them or if I would have adjusted them a few steps back, I probably could have saved them or done them better, but I just pushed forward.
Our biggest fault is doing the videos. We're constantly, I've said this a million times, 3 videos a week is a lot of production every week to get videos out.
But the one thing we've started doing more of is getting more technical and also showing if it didn't work. So I could have made that door, and when I got to the point of like it not being how I wanted, I could have stopped and been like, you know what, this isn't right. We're gonna have to start over. In the next video, we're gonna make it right.
Part 2.
And everybody relates to that. We're probably one of the biggest as far as I know when it comes to YouTube. We're one of the most real when it comes to failures and successes. There's some people that use failures as a drama type thing on YouTube. We don't do that. It's more just like I'm showing you the real process of what it takes, and it's okay to stop and throw a panel in the trash. I'm not trying to turn it into drama where it's, whatever, but I'm just real about it. And I think the more you do that and you're okay with that, then once you become better at being okay with throwing something in the trash, which I still struggle with, and not trying to save it, the better it's going to come out. And you're more productive. So it's like if I would have stopped one step in and thrown it in the trash, I was redoing it, but it would have been the whole door skin.
Sometimes accepting defeat earlier on is actually more beneficial for time because you don't waste all this time trying to correct it and just saying it's wrong. Just start over and fix it.
Yep. So the doors on that car that's a little bit of an ego thing to be like, I got to just start over and it's more like, for me, they're decent enough that with mud and some adjusting and cutting and welding and whatever, I probably could make them acceptable. But for me, I'm like, I should just make them over because my OCD, my skill level is gotten better over the years. So now, years later, I'm like, that's not to the quality that I should make it. And yes, I could throw my hands up in the air and just let it get mudded. But I've also changed, staring at the car, going back to one of those steps, I made those doors with overlapping, like a Model A.
Yeah.
I hate that now. I want to make it like a 32 that has a door gap. So that's another thing that like has always bugged me And it's like, no, I need to go back and make a door gap because I've already, everything else is all custom and fitted, and I'm like, then I left the overlapping doors, which is kind of like doesn't fit with everything
Yeah.
else. So I'm gonna, there's multiple reasons, but that's one of those things. I'm like, I just got to go back and redo it. So you taking your time is going to make you more productive, slowing down and get it done. And if you don't make it to the car show this year, who cares? If your biggest thing is you want to keep this, if you're slapping a car together to resell it, then yeah, sure, okay, who cares? But if you want to keep this car forever or for a long time,
Yeah.
take your time and do it. Especially if you're doing this to like show off your work.
And
or be a
also, like
shop-
you said, getting to the car show, if you rush and then you have problems during the season of driving it, and then it's off the road because you had to fix something you rushed on, then what was the point of you rushing it? Now you can't drive it while it's nice out.
and I'm still terrible with this
Yeah.
because we have it happen still where we'll put in an engine or we'll put parts on the car that I'm like, just got it going, and then it's like, oh yeah, that front end, the kingpins were a little loose, and you put it in, drive it for 3 months, and like, oh, now I got to tear it apart and do kingpin bushings anyways. It's like I should have just done it in the beginning, but you saved yourself the time. So it never, there's always a balance because on the flip side, you also have the people that take that so far.
And they never get the car done.
Never get the car done. So there is a balancing act of that. But when it comes to being in like the initial mock-up and fabrication side of things, once the car's painted, you can't really go back and redo that without undoing that. So at least with like the kingpin thing, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm just taking the spindles off. Maybe you got to repaint the spindles, but like that's the only thing there. So the last one is try and get yourself better or more in the process of multitasking and thinking ahead.
Mm-hmm. This past year has probably been one of our biggest things we've done in the shop and as a business is trying to be looking ahead for what we need in the future.
Yes. So from the shop side, go ahead.
It also ties back in with the list thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's a big part of it. But like on the shop side, what we've been doing is like this green roadster was probably the one that I made Steve do it the most on. And I'm not picking on Steve. It's just I'm trying to again step back to where Steve can work without me holding his hand or standing over him as much. Is like, all right, we pulled the car in, we're going to do a juice brake conversion. We think we have everything we need. No, I want you to go through and he and I spend an hour and talk through every possible item he might need. And it's like, sometimes I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, we have enough wheel cylinders. We should be good. And I forgot the 3 other cars we did. And then he goes, we're out of right front wheel cylinders. And he's like really deep into the project. Yeah. So I had him go through and like we found, we don't have any original front drums right now. So we had to like take a step back, went in my stash of stuff, and we had some brand new like Drake drums, repros. And then and luckily on that instance, we found some hubs that were already separated.
Yep.
And went through and like, do you have bearings? Do you have grease seals? Do we have every single thing so that you can just work and you're not like what we've had happen in the shop, and I'm sure Weekend Warrior people have the same problem. You think this Sunday I'm going to go out and I'm going to get the brakes on my car, and you didn't really take a look, and then you go out and you open up all those boxes you got from Speedway or the parts store, and one of the seals they sent you is the wrong one. And you're like, shit. And now you're all pissed because you can't get anything done. So, like, that's what we had Steve do. He went through, and he and I made sure we had every seal, every piece. And luckily for us, we found a few things like the rubber brake line from the master cylinder to the torque tube. We had an original one, but we didn't have a longer one because we were doing something custom. And it's like, okay, let me order from Napa. We'll have it tomorrow, and no harm, no foul. Yeah. He's still working. So thinking ahead, I mean, in the parts business,
it ties in with the shop stuff too, because like you said about the brake drums, our brake drum shelf was like an avalanche of brake drums. Nothing was organized. Nothing was measured. So because of having the issues with the green car, finding some brake drums, Ryan and I organized the entire shelf now, so we can now, when we're looking ahead, I can go to the shelf and say, we have no front brake drums. We got to find some, because the 32 two-door sedan we're going to do juice brakes on. We don't have any front drums for that car right now. So that's something we need to look for in the future as we're doing estates.
Yeah.
I find a set, put them aside, or put them with that car. So when we go to do the juice brakes, we're not like, hey, did we ever find front drums for this?
Yeah, and it helps too. We've gotten better over the past few years, where we kind of know what parts we're low on.
Yeah.
So like there's been times where we go to Hershey and Carlisle and bigger swap meets, and we, like if we're talking about brake drums, like if we're at Spring Carlisle this year and a guy's got a front axle with backing plates and drums that look decent, and maybe the price is more than we would normally spend, but we're low on them, we're like, let's just buy the whole axle because we need those drums.
Yeah.
We'll eventually sell the axle and other stuff, but like, or we've bought, I don't know, there's been a lot of stuff where you're like, we got a bunch of 44 dashboards that are missing glove boxes, and like go out and looking at the swap meets and you're like, you know what, let me buy a few glove boxes, whereas normal you wouldn't even buy a glove box.
No,
you know?
yeah, definitely.
So we're trying to get better at that, of, you know, looking ahead, and if we're at an estate buying, if we know that we need that thing, whatever the thing is, or we're low on these wheels and we'll buy them, where other times we might just not even buy them or leave them behind. So thinking ahead about that stuff. But the other part of the thinking ahead, and I'm actually pretty good at it, is if you're working on a car or multiple cars, thinking ahead of getting other people, like if you're not doing all the work yourself, getting other people started on it so it's happening while you're doing the thing. So right now with the Mercury, I know I'd like to drive it this season. So I hit up Chris. Well, I have multiple upholstery guys I work with. So I kind of like, okay, well, our friend Jerry's going to do the top on the our friend Pete's 47 convertible that we were working on. So I'm not going to hit him up and try and get him to do another interior because he's already kind of backed up. You know, our friend Joe that has done a number of stuff for us, he's potentially going to do the top on the DeLorean Roadster, and he already told me he's backed up with other work. Yeah. So it's like, so I just kind of checked with different people. So I hit up Chris, and it's like, hey, how backed up are you guys? Can you do the Mercury? Oh, I can do the Mercury, but I can't get to it for whatever. So when was that? January? I dropped him the seats and stuff at...
Oh, yeah, because it was at the Allentown Swap Meet.
Yeah, so I dropped him the seats and stuff, and while I've been working on the Mercury just this week, you know, 2 months later, month and a half later.
Yeah.
He came over with the door card patterns all cut out and made, and he had material samples, and like, so if I would have waited till I was ready for the seats to give him all that stuff, I wouldn't have been able to drive it this season. So if you're going to need to get the engine rebuilt, even though you got a whole year of metal work, sometimes engine builders are a year out. So why don't you get them the engine, get it started in the background?
It's very similar to being a general contractor for a house build.
Yeah.
We talked about the pole building. You were doing the same thing, getting all this stuff lined up so it went seamlessly and you weren't waiting a year for concrete.
That's a future, if this whole IronTrap thing doesn't work out, I could be a good general project coordinator.
Yeah, project manager.
Project manager. I kicked ass on the pole barn because I had like down to like the day or the week. I'm like, you know, the excavator. I had the pole barn company up and had them all prepped, and they knew about what week.
Yep.
And as soon as the pole barn guys were literally putting the last freaking finishing touches, I'm texting or calling the excavator like, hey, are we still good for next week? My guys are done. Let's do Tuesday. And it's like, we got everything kind of, for the most part, most of it went pretty smoothly, but I had to really hold everybody's hand. But like, it's the same thing with doing cars. It's like, you know, if you know that your engine builder's backed up, then you better get them the engine now and get it started.
Yep.
And it also helps with, like, you can help gauge when you're going to have to pay these people. So, like, a lot of times, an engine builder or upholstery guy, they might only take a deposit or they may not take anything. And you know that you're going to have to pay when it's done. But, like, you got time to do that. You know that if you got them the seats and they're going to take 3 months, well, 3 months from now, I got to come up with the money. But, like, if you don't think about that till whatever, then
Sticker shock.
yeah, sticker shock, and that'll happen. But I'm always thinking ahead with all of our projects. Again, back to the list thing. Even if it's parts, I'm looking for the parts because I might get a deal on a part when I'm not looking, but I know I'll need it eventually, rather than waiting till you need that part.
Especially in our case, with how many projects
Yeah,
you are juggling all the time, having, thinking ahead and having a list is crucial, because a bunch of the projects we found parts a year or two ahead of time just because we were thinking ahead.
yeah,
And you get a good deal, not have to pay out the nose for something.
right. Yeah, especially at swap meets and stuff.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like, have a list in my phone, and I'm like thinking about, or even just in the back of my head, I'm like, you know what? I need some cool bumpers for the 38 convertible, and it's like in the back of my head, there's like 5 different bumpers I would have been okay with, and if I walked up on one of those 5 sets at a swap meet and they were a good deal, then I would have bought them, and they kind of choose themselves.
Yeah.
So you just always have to be doing that. And way too often do we have customers that call us looking for parts, and it's like, I need this tomorrow. I need it yesterday. I need this XYZ. And it's like, well, that thing you're looking for is super popular. And as soon as we get one in, F1 steering boxes, 32 pedals. So like every set we get in, they sell within a week. So like, no, of course we don't have them in stock.
Yeah.
Like you and everybody else is looking for them. You should have been looking for a year when you were building the chassis, looking for those items. And sorry, we don't have them. Or guys are like, I'm looking for a good deal on a 32 grill. You're like, you and everybody else. Like,
yeah, I'm looking for a good deal too.
Me too. And anyone I'm selling you is going to be priced accordingly because it's a very desirable item. So you need to be thinking ahead, looking for this stuff way, whether it's Facebook Marketplace, eBay, whatever. You got to be looking for the stuff ahead of time. But most importantly, when you're thinking of the project, just thinking of all the stuff you're going to need ahead of time is going to save you time, because a lot of this stuff, and if you're building a nostalgic car or a Purely Correct car, you can't just go to Amazon and buy some of this stuff. Now, yeah, consumables, wheel cylinders, brake seals, stuff like that, yes. But like, some of this stuff you can't just buy, and you got to like think ahead and start looking now, or start putting the word out now so you can find it. And that way, so when you're putting the car together, you're not too many people we run across where they're like, project stuck because they can't find a left front fender for their XYZ,
Those are the phone calls I deal with on a weekly basis.
It's like, I don't know what to tell you. That's a hard thing to find. You gotta look. You gotta spend the time. And there's guys that we talked to, it's like they look for 10 years to find this steering wheel for their car, and it's like, I don't know, how long have you owned the car? I owned it for 30 years. Should have been looking 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Would have been a lot easier then. So that's one of the things, is just thinking ahead and multitasking. And it's not physically you're doing all that stuff. It's just getting things moving on your project so that it comes together a lot more quickly or easier. And it's just communication in the end of the day. So, but yeah, so that was 10 heavy hitters that
really
work,
good tips
and stuff that we're trying to get better at all the time. So I'm not trying to be a motivational speaker here.
We also suck.
We also suck at some of these things. I'm better at some of the things I need to work on myself, and it's nobody's perfect, but some of these are just very simple things, like we talk about sweeping the floor and cleaning up once a week or whatever. Like that stuff, once I started doing that myself, I can't believe how much more
it makes a difference.
How much it made a difference. Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. Hopefully these were helpful. And if you have some tips, let us know. But hopefully it's helpful to you guys. Or if you have some ideas, send us an email, and maybe we can do a future podcast on a topic that you have an idea for. So thank you guys for following along. Appreciate it. Catch you later.